It's a wicked tea time today. And on this wicked tea time, we've got a lot of things to talk about. We're talking about Old Lions Court. We're talking about Sneb dying to level 9 Bandit. It's going to be big.
They announced earlier this week it's going to be a strike, but there's also going to be the original meta coming back as well, as like the Dragonstorm style thing. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns about.
Oh, really?
I'm actually okay. Let me just throw this out there.
Ooh.
Do you feel like having lots of different hubs is a good thing?
Teapot takes your head because you're a horse and shoves your head in to make you drink the water. That's what happens. You've been led to the water and now you must drink.
Oh, look, I've got my moss art.
That's the opening line, by the way, Sneb. That was the opening line.
Oh, it is?
Just so you know. You've got your moss art.
Nice.
And
It's
today...
viral on Reddit, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, it blew up on Reddit. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You should have
It's
like
really
had a little link to the Discord, like in Moss as well, so you can get people in, get people to just just in there as well. Yeah, a little bit of subliminal messaging. You know, you could have raid in Guild Wars 2, right? Like join raids, join groups. That would be the way. But anyway, it's a wicked tea time today. And on this wicked tea time, we've got a lot of things to talk about. We're talking about Old Lions Court. We're talking about Sneb dying to level 9 Bandit. It's going to be big.
True.
It's going to be a very, very big tea time indeed. Welcome viewers. Welcome everyone to the show. Of course, welcome my wonderful hosts. It is Sneb. It is Nike. It is Lara. Boom. Here is everyone. It's going to be incredible stuff. It's going to be some wild gaming today, my friends. And you know what? Let's get into it, because this topic is one that I think is both important and fascinating. It is the new strike mission. It's coming out. The Living World Season 1. It's over. We get fresh content within this patch, but also it signals kind of the end of the catch-up phase after End of Dragons, and in the new year, that's when we're going to start seeing what the future holds for the game itself. But that's not the topic of today. The topic of today is the final patch, and we've seen a bit of information about the new strike mission, and in fact, we know that it is going to be an interesting boss. There will be 3 bosses. In fact, it will be the trio of Watch Knights making their return from the original Battle for Lion's Arch, right? Of course, the original event was rather convoluted, actually. You had to run around putting out fires and rescuing people. Then, after a while, you'd fight the 3 Watch Knights. Then you beat the 3 Watch Knights. Then you go up into the air and go into the Breachmaker and do a kind of like mini Veil Guardian thing with Scarlet, and then you win. But also, it was weird because they hadn't figured out instancing then, so you actually had 3 battleships going on at the same time. It was absolutely bizarre. I actually remember that people used to get really, really mad if they ended up on one of the Breachmakers that didn't win. Very funny, but a little bit unlucky if you end up on the wrong one, I suppose. But anyway, what do we think about this? I think it's pretty hype. This seems like a very interesting idea. Very interesting idea for a strike mission, I think. Especially considering it's going to be one in the core game rather than something totally fresh.
And like that's coming back too, right? Like they announced earlier this week it's going to be a strike, but there's also going to be the original meta coming back as well, as like the Dragonstorm style thing. I'm really excited. But first of all, I think I can already imagine Reddit on the day it comes out because I expect it to be really easy. I think we all expect it to be easy, right? It's like core game. People don't have elite specs. I think it's gonna be Shiver Peaks boss difficulty, to be quite honest. Yeah, because it's the first strike, right? First strike people get to. I think the challenge mode might be hard, but I think the strike is going to be super easy. I think everyone's going to want for that. But I just hope it will be like 3 bosses and not like Cold War, you know? I hope it will be a genuine boss fight, and then that the CM will be really cool. I'm really excited though. I cannot wait, even though I think it's going to be super easy. Just cannot wait to see what they do with it.
I'm kind of worried. Because I never experienced season 1, so I have no concept of what it was like. But the idea that there are 3 bosses, I'm concerned about how that functions, because I really hope it's not like, I don't know, KO. Getting over.
Oh,
I don't really like how there are
super
3 bosses at once. I like it when there's one big bad boss. Maybe it evolves or something, and you take that boss out. But I don't want there to be like 3 things going on at once. Like how did it function exactly back in the day?
Well, in the original event, I think you just had 3 bosses spread quite far apart. You had to divide into 3 groups to fight them.
Okay.
But I
Yeah,
don't
you
think.
just-
Yeah, I think it will be a little
you
bit
just zerk
different.
them
Though.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I expect this to be pretty much a new fight with like the same inspired by those 3 bosses you just zerked down.
Yeah.
Then.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would hope that it would be like phases, right? So the first 33% you have to deal with this,
Like
second
Lagos?
33% you have to deal. Yeah, kind of like Lagos. I would be okay with that, right? But I don't want it so that there's anything happening. I don't want to fight 3 bosses at the same time. I feel like that would just be a little odd.
Oh, I kind of want to fight 3 bosses at the same time.
I could kind of see it being like sort of like Marionette in that you have a different mechanic, each round. So like the red boss is like, okay, you have to like range this one, or you need like someone to tank it, and you can only hurt it this way. And so that way the gameplay experience from boss to boss is different. So people have to get out of their comfort zone, and it'll introduce the peepos to different like ways the boss fights can go besides balling up on them and auto attacking.
Yeah. I could imagine a situation where you have to swap between them at intervals, but the mechanics are still going on. So one is vulnerable, you have to go and attack that one, but the other 2 are still doing attacks and you have to avoid those at the same time. That could be based on like a health timer, maybe some kind of a color achievement too, because the original one had some mechanics a bit like Veil Guardian, a bit like the Ooze Pit. Now you had to kind of get the right color light to damage the holograms on the Breachmaker. So something like that can involve target switching. They probably won't make it super complicated. I'm very much inclined to agree with your assessment of the difficulty. It's going to be pretty easy, right? It's look, I think it's going to be balanced around core specs. That's my take. I actually think they might even balance the challenge mode around core specs, in my opinion. At least in terms, I think they will, because what's the alternative? I think it's wouldn't it be super? Let's imagine this is the scenario, and they balance the only core strike around elite specializations, even on CMs. Wouldn't that be super weird if the only core strike would be impossible without elite specializations and buying the expansion? Isn't that super weird?
You just say it's mathematically possible with core specs, but you're not intended to actually do it.
I mean, we have fractal CMs, right? Fractal CMs are balanced around elite specs, even though they're technically in core, I think.
That is
I think
true.
you can do fractal CMs in core.
That's true.
Yeah, I expect the normal mode to be balanced around core. I don't really expect the challenge mode to be. I think the challenge modes will be up there with like Aetherblade CM difficulty. And again, I actually think that you're completely correct, Nike. I think it will be mathematically possible with core specs. Here's the thing though, I don't think it's actually a huge issue if it is balanced around elite specs, because even if you are like in core, if you join like a group on LFG or something, or in your guilds, a lot of people are going to have expansions. A lot of people are going to have elite specs. I don't think it will happen that often that you have 10 core people.
The 10 core group is unlikely.
Yeah, exactly.
That is true. I'll give you
You're
that.
right,
That
though. It would be kind of strange, right? But how much difficulty can you do? Can you make a normal mode? Maybe just like the mechanics are harder, right? But the DPS checks are like core friendly or something.
Yeah. It can have a very low DPS check, then it will be fine with core. If you just have to, again, I think Aetherblade Hideout is a pretty good example actually of that, because even on challenge mode, it's definitely more of a puzzle, more of a mechanics check rather than a. Well, I guess it kind of does have a bit of a DPS check, but they could make it very easy, right? Like it, it'd be fine. It also has a bit of a healing check, because that's the thing that is weird about core specs. What healer would you play? It would be like Ellie, right? Like staff auto attack heal Ellie is all you've got.
That's a good healer.
Yeah, and you
doesn't do anything.
You have no alacrity or quickness, but you can heal a fair bit.
You can have quickness warrior and alacrity core ranger.
Yeah, heal quickness warrior, core warrior, and then alacrity ranger with water spirit. Insane, absolutely.
Nike
insane.
does not approve.
That would be really bad.
Yeah, that would be a little questionable, I think. But anyway, to re-rail, I guess. I think there are a lot of interesting options and a lot of interesting directions they can go with the strike mission, I think. And I'm excited to see 3 bosses. I like that. I like that it's going to be different. I think one of the things that Guild Wars 2 has struggled with is actually encounter design. I think a lot of encounters tend to play out the same way. It's like, okay, here's the boss, stack on the boss, blast it. Even if you look at Harvest Temple Challenge mode, that's kind of what it is a lot of the time, is like stack on boss, blast, do mechanic, restack, blast, go do something else, blast, restack, blast. That's basically what you do. I think stuff like Kiting Overlook is actually really fun. Like, you've got to swap between the sniper and the mech to make sure that you keep them within 20%. I think that's a really cool mechanic, especially on challenge mode. I like the fact that you've got to manage the enforcer and the mind blade. You've got to stack two of them to get optimal cleave damage. I think stuff like that kind of shakes up the usual dynamic of how the combat goes is really good. And funnily enough, this is a kind of a boring perspective, but I also think the more different you make encounters, the more balanced the game becomes. Because if you have all the encounters the same, then the same build is going to be best in slot everywhere. But if you have different encounters that have kind of different requirements to be optimal, then that actually really helps to balance the game too, because certain specializations might shine in different scenarios, right? I think that's really good for the game. It just makes things a little bit different, a little bit spicy. So I'm very, very excited for this one, actually. And it's an important one too, in my opinion, because this strike mission is essentially the benchmark for non-expansion strikes. Because we saw some with Icebrood Saga. They were all right. But I think it would be fair to say that looking at the End of Dragon strike missions, people are expecting a higher standard now, right? I'd say the EOD ones are a lot more polished, kind of. They're a lot more in-depth with more mechanical complexity and so on. So I think people are going to be expecting a high standard here. And if this strike really knocks out of the park, the norm mode is fun and engaging, not super hard, and the challenge mode is fun as well, and it's like it's good, then I think that's going to really affect community morale and community optimism when it comes to endgame PvE content, right? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just hope that people realize it's gonna be tuned for people's first strike. I'm so scared that it's gonna be like a really cool fight, but like people are just gonna be like, I one-shot it, so it's bad content. I am pretty scared of that happening. But who knows? The CM is coming out like 3 weeks from now, I think, right? So
Yes.
there's not a huge gap until we get that. So I guess if you one-shot it and you're set by that, you can always go do the challenge mode 3 weeks from now.
One thing that's interesting is, what are the rewards going to be? Because it's not going to give green crystals, right? Because that's expansion currency gated, right? So and it's not going to drop Icebrood Saga, the blue currencies. Maybe they're going to bring back red crystals for this and have a new vendor. Yeah.
I guess that would make sense. I would assume that, I don't know, this is such a long-term thing that it's hard to think about it really, but would they want to do a shard for every expansion? Because I imagine they'd like to have, say, Mordramoth as a strike mission. They would eventually like to have Balthazar as a strike mission. So maybe you have purple shards for Path of Fire. You have a different shade of green for Heart of Thorns. You have red for the core game. So I guess that would make sense. But maybe that gets to a little bit too bloaty. They might have to actually kind of compress it down all into one currency maybe somehow. Or maybe have... the way you could do it is you could have one currency for all current strike missions, and then the latest strike has a separate currency. Because why do they even separate these? They separate them so you can't insta-buy all the rewards, right? That's actually the function of this, because they let you convert them. You can turn your blue into green, right? You can do that, no problem. You can go the other way around too, I think, actually. And the reason they let you do this is because ultimately they serve the same purpose, but the reason why they don't let you instantly get all of the new currency with gating crystals and the Path of Fire raids is so that people who had 20k magnetite couldn't go, you know what, I'm just gonna buy all of that real quick, no problem. So I think that's kind of the goal there. So they could probably do two, one for all the current ones, then have a separate one for the next one. And then when the next strike comes out, well, the other one gets merged in and you move on. So that might be another approach they could take at some point.
Yeah, I feel like the red one would make sense in one way, but like recently ArenaNet has kind of demonstrated that they want to get rid of currency blows, right? Like they got rid of gating crystals. Gating crystals and magnetize got merged into just magnetize. They got rid of like all the dungeon currency. So I don't really see them doing it. I don't really see them doing the rest one. Something I found pretty interesting though is that I was wondering if they were gonna have a new hub for basically core strikes in a way, right? Or like who knows, like the new strike series or something. But they mentioned in their blog post that this will be accessible from Lion's Arch, with like just an entrance, and it will also be accessible from Arborstone. So they are kind of adding it to the EOD strike list. So in a way, it's almost like a half EOD era. I could almost even see them just giving it EOD rewards, just the EOD currency. I don't know. Maybe
that'll be
dungeon
great.
currency.
The free-to-play players will be like, "Oh, cool, green shards I can't use for anything. What amazing rewards! Thank you."
That would suck.
It is
maybe
great.
dungeon currency.
Then they'd have to buy the expansion. Another sale. Cha-ching.
Yeah. It is a little bit strange because what are you going to do with your core strike rewards? I almost think they might make it just give gold and not give any shards whatsoever.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of add that complication, because maybe they could add them eventually, because right now it would just be weird. Let's imagine that you get like 10 shards for doing it. Well, to get an ascended item, if they added a new vendor for red shards or something like that, or they added a vendor for green shards in Lion's Arch, it would take you like it would take you months to get anything if you're just doing this strike every week. So it would be a bit weird if that was in the game right now. So they're in a bit of an awkward position because they're only adding one strike mission to the core game. So it's a little.
It might be
awkward.
like what's the first Icebird Saga one? The one that came with Grothmar. What's that called? Shiver Peak Pass.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That doesn't give you any of the frozen thingies. So that just gives you like random shit. So that could probably be what they'll do.
Yeah.
They'll probably
Imagine if
like
they're,
instead of giving you what is the Grothmar, the peppers or whatever.
Yes.
Instead of giving you the peppers, they'll give you like the gear things that you get from
sprockets.
ArenaNet sprockets, and then you'll just get like a bunch of blues and greens and maybe like a gold or something.
Yeah.
Imagine if they did daily core strike and it's just always this one because there's only one of them, so there's no rotation.
You have to do it every day. That's big. Yeah, that is good. I think Sneb, I think you told me it's going to be a 2-golder, I believe. I think that actually is semi-confirmed, right?
I don't know if it's confirmed, but that was my guess.
Yeah, it's confirmed.
Yeah, we're just confirming it here.
Yeah, we're confirming that here. It's not confirmed, but I'm going to say it's confirmed. Yeah, it's good. It's going to be...
I think that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns about...
Oh, really?
I'm actually... Okay, let me just throw this out there.
Ooh.
Do you feel like having lots of different hubs is a good thing? Or what? I think Arborstone is cool and unique, and I actually really like how Arborstone is designed. I think the resting experience is kind of a neat quirk as well. But then you also have Eye of the North, where there's strikes there. And now we're adding something where in Lion's Arch there's a strike. Do we have concerns that that's confusing for players? Or is it like, whatever, it doesn't really matter?
I mean, back in the day, you actually had to physically walk into the dungeon at all different places in the world to get to that dungeon. So it's kind of almost adds to the RP factor that you have to go to different places.
I think one way to do it, which could be pretty cool, would be making all of the hubs complete hubs. So you could enter any strike mission from Eye of the North. You could enter any strike mission from Arborstone, for example.
Yeah.
So you can have different hubs, but they have the same functionality, essentially. Because, I do think that, if you have a million different hubs and they all do different things, especially as more content gets added to the game, that could potentially be a problem. Again, if we do eventually see Heart of Thorn strikes, we do eventually see Path of Fire strikes, and they're going to add a new hub in POF, a new hub in in Heart of Thorns as well. Yeah, that's maybe a little bit too much. And yeah, I think it would just be better to maybe extend the functionality everywhere. Because it would work. They have the ability to make the hubs sensitive to what content you own. For example, if you don't have Icebrood Saga champions, you can't start a dragon response mission. Ooh, yeah. So yeah, and you can't enter strikes. This is weird. You can do Icebrood Saga strikes if you have Path of Fire. Okay. Which is a little bit weird, but that's how it works. If you don't have Path of Fire, then it won't let you do Icebrood Saga strikes. So there are some ways they could do this.
Did you know, this is kind of unrelated, but you can go from Arborstone, the Arborstone portal, you can go to the training area, right? But you
Yes.
can only do it if you buy the training area link with Eye of the North.
Wait, what?
I think there's some spaghetti codes going on. You have to buy it in
Wires
Eye
are a
of the
bit
North.
crossed there.
Yeah. That is unusual,
Oh
to
my
say the
God.
very least, actually. I did not know that. Wow.
Speaking
Figured
of
it out.
hubs, you know what they're going to come out with? A money-making venture for the cash shop
Oh, really?
with this patch.
What's it going to be?
Old Lion's Arch
Ah,
Pass.
yes. I'd be really surprised they didn't do that, actually. Like,
If they didn't do that, then they need to hire me to put me in charge of the gem store, because clearly I know better than them what would sell if they don't do that. Like, and you even have to bring back the by Ogden's Hammer what savings guy.
Yes.
Like that, like all the old Lion's Arch people, like bring them all back.
I don't think they'll sell it. There's
Easy
a
money.
collection. There's a collection though. It's called Lion's Memory. Like you get it if you do all the achievements from all the season 1 episodes. And it's called Lion's Memory. And then it reads like
Oh.
time heals all wounds. It
Oh.
has to be. It has to be. I don't think they'll sell it. I think it'll be the achievements reward, but we might find out on Tuesday finally, after like a year. I'm excited.
I wonder if they could give you the option of using the old Lion's
Oh.
Arch. Because
Like
you know
replace?
the phasing tech they had in Kha'Zix Hills, right? Where you can actually turn old Kha'Zix Hills on or off, right? And the Tower of Nightmares like appears and despawns. I wonder if they could do something similar to that for Lion's Arch, so you could kind of pick your Lion's Arch pretty much.
Nobody would pick the new one though. Nobody. That would be a good test to tell if there's like a sociopath in the community. Like they would pick the new Lion's Arch, and ArenaNet could just go ahead and straight up ban them because they're a dangerous individual.
Okay. You know, let's do it. Let's see in the chat. Chat, who would pick new Lion's Arch? Let's see. Let's see if anyone would. I bet at least one person in the chat would 100% pick the new one. Look, there you go.
There's
There's
some
one.
nice stuff about the new one.
Yeah. Look, I would. There you go.
Yeah, these are just trolls though. They're not. They're not actually in the moment.
Maybe they've never seen old Lion's Arch, so they just don't know.
Yeah. It will definitely be some interesting stuff. Do you have any other concerns, Sneb? Yeah, I want to bring Sneb back into this.
Something else that I think is kind of interesting. So Lara said that, she thinks that it would be something like, what's that strike even called? The first one in the Icebrood Saga. That
Shiver
the one where you
Peak
just run
Pass.
up the
Shift Peak
hill.
spells.
Yeah, Shiver Peak Pass. There you go. That one really doesn't have a lot of mechanics. Like nothing really happens.
Yeah.
So when I see the 3 separate bosses, I think, how do they make that doable for players who are just being introduced to instanced content? But not like, how do you make that not complicated if there's 3 different bosses? They couldn't all be active at the same time, like what Teapot was suggesting before. No,
I don't
my
think it's going to be
concern
that
then
easy.
well, the concern is even deeper then, because if that's the first instance content that people are exposed to, if there are things going on simultaneously, then it's going to split up the group, and it's going to be hard for people to glean that being stacked matters a lot more than you might expect, because that's how the boons are being distributed and people are getting healed. So I'm very curious about how that would all function, Because frankly, I think they should make it quite easy. I think if it's Shiver Peak Pass level for normal mode, that's probably fine, because you want people to just get in there and be like, wow, I really like this. What more is there? But if you have 3 bosses, what's gonna happen? How does that work?
I think, and I'm not saying this is what I want, but I think that unlike Shiver Peaks Pass, there will be a fail state. It will be theoretically possible to fail this strike. Whereas Shiver Peaks Pass, I cannot imagine what 10 players and what 10 builds you'd have to get together to actually wipe.
I've seen it.
Shiver Peaks Pass.
I've seen it.
Were you on NA or something? Or?
I played Minstrel Heel Scourge. I went full Safari public mode in Enraged. There were 10 players. Everyone survived. Everyone was going full blast. I've seen it.
Maybe
it doesn't do
like
damage. All it does is chill and knock you back.
Yeah.
How do you die from it?
The damage was not enough. The DPS check failed. Bear in mind it's a strike, so when the time ends, you literally lose. So yeah.
Maybe it would be like the bears, like the Kodan strike, where there's like 2, and like if you kill one, it enrages and something. Like that's not a very hard strike, but it is like more engaging. You can fail that one. Maybe it'll be something around that difficulty. Something like that.
I think that the strike, I think it will have a lot of different mechanics because it's got multiple bosses. But I think it might kind of fall into the Kaineng Overlook, kind of some of the flaws in that strike mission. Because I think Kaineng Overlook actually has a lot going on. And then you play it in a pug group and you ignore literally every single mechanic and it doesn't matter, right? That's possibly going to happen again. Where you can definitely die. You can 100% die in Kaineng Overlook normal mode, but no one does the CC. Like no one actually goes up to CC the sniper, right? Like you just like, oh, I'm gonna get zapped, and then we just revive everyone, right? We're gonna actually completely ignore the equalizer mechanic because it doesn't do enough damage on normal mode. We're just gonna ignore it. Oh yeah, fun, all that kind of stuff. So the question is that a problem? And this kind of segues into the other topic, and what Sneb's getting at here. And I also do think this is an interesting point to talk about. There was a comment in the chat like, why are we acting like the strike mission is going to be like a tutorial for new players? Because in a way, yeah, this is something that players will naturally encounter along their path through playing through the core game into the story. And this will be one of their first tastes, in fact, quite possibly their first taste of group content, instance group content in Guild Wars 2. So it should absolutely set the tone for how the game works in that context. So that probably should be one of the goals of a fight like this, is to say, hey, see that? That's a spread circle. You should spread. Hey, that's a green circle. Probably want to stand in that. Hey, that's a red AoE. Don't touch that. Not good. It should introduce concepts like Defiance bars. It should introduce concepts like healing, right? All that kind of stuff. At least a little bit. Because that's kind of the point. It is supposed to be a tutorial, right? Remember, one of the original design ideas for strikes was actually a ramp. It was supposed to ramp you up into more complicated content like raids. So yes, I do think that content like this should have an element of tutorialization to it. I think that's kind of what Sneb's getting at, but I'll let Sneb speak for himself.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's just a natural progression. If you're going through the game and you encounter that, it might be your first exposure to 10-person instant content. And I think that's great. But if you do that, then there should be some tutorialization. This isn't to say that it completely holds your hand, but it should introduce you to some concepts so that you can be successful. Otherwise, you're just going in there like, whoa, this is very different than everything else I've experienced. and you're going to feel very lost. So it has to have this balance of not too complicated, such that players will feel overwhelmed by trying to learn all of these things at once, but also not so easy that they don't learn anything.
So in that sense,
tender balance.
Like Shiver Peaks Boss kind of fails then, right? Because
exactly.
it doesn't really teach you anything. So yeah, I agree. I guess I want it to be harder than Shiver Peaks Boss. Maybe not like DPS check wise, but Yeah.
It just needs to have a
like-
fail state. Like
Yeah.
maybe like each of the 3 bosses has like a simple but failable pass fail mechanic. Like the one boss is don't stand here or you wipe the whole group, or you have to stand here or you wipe the whole group, like that sort of thing, just to like get people, used to that. But also it is indeed instance content, meaning like complete, like fresh install people that have no clue aren't going to get into a group. No, like the groups are going to be looking for 2 alack, 2 quickness, and if some like guy with 6 mastery points on a core thief build with like random gear shows up, they're going to be like, go away. Like they're not going to let him join his DPS. It's just not going to happen.
I think that will happen a lot more, though, because of where it's positioned in the game. And in some ways, isn't that exactly what's going to happen, though? Isn't this going to be where a lot of the players who are totally fresh, totally new, they're going to end up in this strike mission? Because it is positioned so early in the game.
If there's a public version, sure, but I'm talking
Oh.
like actual instance.
You'll probably get... I think a lot of players will try this before they even try fractals, for
I think
example.
so too.
So I think this actually is going to be where a lot of players who haven't, who've just literally just hit 80, they blasted the Living Story Season 1, right? They're just, that's the end of the free-to-play experience. This is like, okay, right, I'm done with free-to-play. There's this boss at the end of it. Here we go. I think that's going to happen a lot. So I think that has to be kind of part of it, is that you are going to have some players who maybe don't have the most optimized build in the universe leaping into it and trying to figure stuff out, and and kind of getting tested a little bit. The game is going to test you, right? I think a really good example of this, I think having it around the same difficulty is kind of Zunai Jade Junkyard is pretty good. That one I like a lot because it has clear fail mechanics, but it's not like unfair. If you touch the crate, you're probably going to die. If you get sucked in, it's not good. You have to break some defiance bars. It's got a variety of mechanics, a variety of things to move away from. I think that's pretty good. I think that your fresh player, core thief in there, running around for the circles, dodging things, breaking the bar, that's good.
In a way, like just the fact that it's free marionettes could be like perfect for sort of a tutorial, right? Like one of them, you have to break the bar. One of them, you, like those attack chefs that dodge. Like you would make every single marionette do like one specific, like teach you one thing. I don't know. Do you think they'd bring back the public instance for this? They didn't do that in EOD, right? Like I suppose Saga's got the public instance strike every day. You just go in there and it matches you with random people. I don't think anyone actually uses it. But that would be like perfect for getting new players into it. Just having like the public one that you can just press. You don't have to go on LFG. Press like public one, join, bam. I wonder if they'd bring that back for this.
I think they'd bring it back if they could fix the tech, because people don't use it, but it's not because people don't want to do public. It's because public is kind of broken. With public, this is one of the really big problems. With public, if you fill the group and then someone leaves, unlucky, you can't fill anymore. Your instance is closed, right? Unfortunate for you. Now you're forced to 7-man or 9-man or whatever, and you're going to have to, or restart, right? You don't have another choice, which is really, really annoying. So people aren't going to do that. Also, it's really weird. You can't leave the instance properly in public. You have to actually like waypoint out. You can't, there's no leave button, unless maybe they fixed that one. But yeah, on the launch of the system, you go in there and do the public. And at the end of the strike mission, you have to walk through the portal to get out, right? If there is a portal, or you have to waypoint out, because the system is just weird. Like the way it works is incredibly unusual. It's it's a bit like Dragon response missions. Like DRMs have this same issue, except kind of even worse. Even if you are in a party and you join a Dragon response mission, because they're like story instances almost, if someone didn't make it in time, well, unlucky. They're not making it in ever. There are just these really weird problems with some of the public things that, with the way they operate, that it's just very frustrating to deal with these things. Yeah.
I like to see an improved version of that though. Like, somewhat. I might be going a little bit off topic here, but I would like to see a system for these brand new players to just like get into a group easily for something like this, because I think LFG is if you're a new player, like it's daunting. I think
You're-
it scares off a lot
You're
of people.
never gonna get into a group if it's LFG only. If you're like core thief, short bow
Yeah.
guy, like no one like. Even
I'd like to see
10-man
a solution for
Dragonstorm,
that.
like they say, yeah, you can join as DPS, but like you're gonna stick out if you don't have a real build. Like it's gonna be pretty obvious.
I imagine that's awfully frustrating for players who, they've gone through, let's say, 350 mastery points of the game, playing just like that, and then this content releases and it's kind of hyped up, and they want to join a group and they don't understand. How do you think you bridge that gap?
Teapot takes your head because you're a horse and shoves your head in to make you drink the water. That's what happens.
Well,
you've been led to the water and now you must drink. And what you have to drink is the builds on hardstuck.gg.
True.
Check it
True. Yeah, okay, to engage with this though, because obviously we're memeing here a little bit, but I actually don't think the game does lead you to water. And this is where we kind of get into the level 9 bandit meme and level 70 abomination.
Yes, level 9 bandit.
I'll let Sneb unleash on this topic a little bit because it's something that he's actually very passionate about. We've talked about this a few times on stream before. I don't think the game does a very good job of leading you to water, which is why I think the topic of will the strike nudge people in the right direction is kind of coming up here, because realistically the game doesn't nudge you in the right direction.
Yeah. Will people find the strike?
Yeah. Well, no, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that, well, okay, I'm just gonna let Sneb do this one because he's actually been doing a bit of a fun challenge recently. But yeah, Sneb, go. Right, tell me about the game not leading the horse to water. So the horse wanders around aimlessly and doesn't drown. It dries up. Yeah.
Okay. So some of you know, but I've been doing a challenge where I have a fresh account, brand new account, just bought it, logged in, and I only play characters on it that have absolutely no gear whatsoever. No weapon, no trinkets, no armor, no stats, right? That's it. I permit myself to use food. I allow myself to use the trading post and whatever, as long as I only get the gold from playing on that account. And so I started with Necromancer because I thought, you know what? Necromancer is pretty much complete god tier, right? So I went, and frankly, leveling 1 to 80 was a little bit too easy because of the profession mechanic. Because I was given weapon skills by going into F1, going into Shroud, and I was able to survive and tank like 15 plus enemies at once, even with no gear, no weapons, as I was leveling. Went through the story, had no issue. The only time I died was there's this one location in Mount Maelstrom where if you go in there without a disguise on, the champions instantly delete you. And I forgot about that. And I was just looking for points of interest. And I went in and went, oh no. And then I died. But then I was like, okay, well, this is too easy. Let's try Warrior. So I started Warrior. But if you don't have a weapon on Warrior, you have no profession mechanic. And fun fact, I think they're called physical skills. But physical skills are the only utility skills on Warrior that do any damage. Any. So I was going around and I was having to pick up like rocks and planks and stuff to do any damage. And I found that because the physical skills have such a high recharge, I would only be able to do like 70 to 80% of the damage on one enemy with 30-second cooldown skills. So it was really slow. It was doable, but it was very slow. And I frankly got bored at like level 32. And I ended up dying on that one once because I went into a cave where I succumbed to the centaur trample because I had no stun break.
Did that excite you?
No, it did not. I was devastated. But anyway, Then yesterday, on behalf of Extra Life, I thought, hey, I'm going to stream super long. So I went 11 hours yesterday, and I started an Elementalist, and I was like, I'm going to try to level to 80 without dying on an Elementalist with no gear. For context, because it's light armor, Elementalist has the least health and the least natural armor. So you're very squishy. So I got to level 16 and then I succumbed to level 9 Bandit who put bombs at my feet multiple times and I got stun locked. So that was kind of funny. So I restarted. I was an hour in and I deleted and restarted. And I made it all the way to level 80 without dying on a core elementalist with no weapon and no gear. And I mean, what do you think about that? That's kind of interesting. I mean, on one hand, I'm a veteran player, so of course I have knowledge and experience that a new player might not have. But I never felt like there was a time when the game was like, Sneb, you know, it's kind of funny that you're doing this. You probably shouldn't do that. You know, you probably should put on some gear and a weapon so that you can make it through. But the game never stopped me. I was going through story, I was completing maps, I was engaging in world bosses. In fact, I took out several world bosses. I did everything. And so, other than instance content, of course, I didn't go into a dungeon, but I got all the way to level 80, just kind of playing along the story and following where the game took me without too much trouble. I did die at hour 11, actually, while I was chatting with Teapot, because I kind of zoned out and I succumbed to level 70 Abomination. But other than that, I think I did pretty well for the challenge and made it all the way to level 80. So I look at this and I go, what are new players learning about gear? Gear is pretty foundational to being successful in things like endgame content or instance content, or being able to have more impact for your group in open world. So what is it that we're teaching players, or rather, what is it that the game is teaching players as they level and experience the core story and the core maps? What is it teaching them about gear? And to me, it's teaching them nothing. Because there seems to be no wrong choice. If I can go through that entire experience with no weapons and no gear, I think that's kind of odd, you know? Now, again, I feel like the big criticism on me here is going to be, well, you know, Sneb, you are the experienced player. And, you know, I agree. I totally agree. But just take a new player and give them random stats and random weapons. They just don't have any concept of how they synergize or how they work with traits or what's important, what's not important, because their choices are irrelevant. And if your choices are irrelevant, you will probably ignore them. And I think that's problematic.
I feel like there's two parts to this. I feel like there's, first of all, like the part that there's no wrong decision. Like, you can make it through the entire game without gear. And I think the other part of it is that Guild 2 doesn't really have much of a tutorial, does it? I've been playing some Final Fantasy recently, and that game sort of assumes you've never played an MMO before. So you will get constant pop-ups like, oh, this is how items work, this is how gear works. And when I was playing it, I was like, I know these things. I've played MMOs before, but it kind of gave me this interesting perspective that, like, there's people starting these MMOs who don't have all those concepts, you know, who didn't play, like, I don't know, RuneScape when they were 10 years old. I think, in a sense, Guild Wars 2 just kind of assumes you know how an MMO works. It kind of assumes you know how your inventory works. It kind of assumes that you know gear is a good thing. It doesn't really tell you, which is quite interesting now that I think about this.
Yeah. And I think it's also, it's not, there's something else that's going on here. It's not just that there's no wrong choice, because I feel like your choice does something in that scenario. What's going on is that your choices don't do anything. Like, you can pick anything and you win anyway. I'm kind of splitting hairs on that statement, but I think it's an important hair to split, because
let me illustrate that for you.
Okay.
Actually,
go.
So
Please do.
I started a Sylvari Necromancer.
Okay.
And this has come up in the chat a couple times. They're like, how did you do damage? I didn't. I didn't have any skills that could do damage at the beginning. So I went around and I did hearts that allowed me to gather, and I gathered materials and explored the map. But you know what else I did? I walked over with the Sylvari racial skill that gives just like 2 seconds of regen, and I just put it on another player or an NPC that was
you
around.
got the tag,
and they
yeah.
and they killed level 1 ghoul or whatever, I don't know. And I got a gold medal. It was like, ding, yeah, Sneb, woo, good participation, man. I gave 2 seconds of regen and got a gold medal for participation in that event. And say what you will about that, I find that to be a little problematic because it's just telling me that what I did was gold medal worthy, but I gave 2 seconds of regen. And I don't know, I that's not healthy, right? Because players have no idea if they're doing good or bad because they're only being told that they're getting a gold medal, right?
Mm.
So,
yeah.
what do you think?
I think the problem is that the game's mechanics are irrelevant up until the point where they aren't anymore. And in a way, there's no transition point, right? Like, it goes from everything is irrelevant to, oh boy, it kind of matters now. Even if I think about tier 1 fractals, tier 1 fractals are actually very easy. I did them recently on my alt account, and I was those are really, really easy. But even there, actually, the step up from open world and tier 1 fractals is pretty big, actually. There's a big difference in those two things, actually. If you go into a tier 1 fractal with 5 players with no gear, that is going to be unfortunate for you. And you know what? This is weirdly
what we're worried
true.
about, though? Are we worried about people like literally trying to go into tier 1 fractals wearing literally nothing? Like, is that a real scenario?
Let's talk about dungeons, though. Like, if you go into a story mode dungeon if you're a totally new, if you've got 5 total noobs going into a dungeon with totally random gear, that is going to be an interesting experience, I think.
It'd be actually really fun.
Maybe story mode is kind of okay, but explorable mode, you're really going to have a bad time, actually. Like, especially if you're doing some of the harder dungeons. Can you imagine a Ra with just completely random gear? That's going to be rough, you know?
It's going to be a many-hour experience to clear any path.
That's going to take a while
if
to
you
clear
can even get past Loopy. I doubt
Lupicus is going to be a problem if you don't have like a build that makes some kind of vague sense.
Well,
right?
There you go. Lupicus is your kick in the ass that you need to go to Hardstuck GG and get some builds. Good website.
The thing is, though, I think it would be better if it wasn't a kick in the ass. I think it would be better if, as you progress through the open world, the monsters start hitting a little bit harder, right? And they're going to be a little bit more challenging to overcome, and they have proper moves that you need to dodge. I mean, I guess this is almost impossible. They'd have to WoW Cataclysm it, and that's never going to happen, to be honest. It's just not going to be worth it. But maybe some tuning to some of the enemies and some of the story stuff, and I guess adding more strike missions would be really good. I think this is why the strike mission is important, because I think in a way it can be a gentle, maybe a single toe up the ass, right? Instead of the whole foot, you know? It's
My concern is that people get to that and it has the same impact, right? They get there and they go, holy crap, what do I do? Nobody's letting me into their group. This sucks. Like, why isn't anyone letting me into their group? I've been doing fine. Like, everything's been going fine. I got gold medals all the time. I've been,
Does anyone think that? Come on.
Well, no, there's people that are legitimately very confused when they get to end game and they say, yeah, I'm playing DPS. And I go, well, you're actually doing 1k DPS higher than our healer. And they go, what do you mean? And I go, well, what's your build, right? Like, they don't understand the impact of gear. They understand that they can go find a build, and many of them go and steal a build off of Meta Battle or Hardstuck or Snowcrows or wherever, but they just don't ever understand the impact of gear because they're not curious enough because it hasn't been impactful for their entire gameplay experience. You might go 100 hours, several hundred hours of gameplay just playing through story on multiple characters and never engage with the gearing system and stat system whatsoever, right? And we can laugh and we can be like, oh yeah, like new players, they just don't care. Why would they care? Why would they be curious? Why would they investigate this if everything that they've done up until that point is...
I'm about to get toxic.
Yeah. Oh, well, if everything they get to that point, they're being told it's the right choice or that there's nothing wrong with it, why would you be curious about it? I don't think it's fair to go and blame the player for this a lot of the time. I'm sure you can say, oh man, if you're a little bit more curious, then of course you might be able to find this information out online. But many of them aren't going to do that if there's no prompt to do that, you know?
something I actually find very interesting is like talking about this in open worlds, right? I am like thinking back to when Heart of Thorns first came out. Because I feel like they tried exactly what we're talking about right now. They sort of went like, hey, open world, it's been quite easy so far. And then Heart of Thorns initially came out and they went like, we're going hard. Pocket raptors, we're putting in all these enemies that have mechanics, they've got more HP, they hit harder.
Yes.
And all the
It
game
did-
journalists died. The game got
It
bad
didn't-
reviews, and
it
Colin got
didn't
fired.
go
and
That's
that was the end
true.
of the
well.
story.
That's true.
It
Yeah, that
didn't-
is actually true. Yeah, that
it
did
didn't
happen. Yeah.
go very well.
Yeah. Pocket Raptors actually destroyed the reviews of Heart of Thorns. That's not even a joke. That is actually true. They're so powerful, they reached outside the game and took points off the review score. That's not a joke,
Oh,
by the way.
wow.
For anyone who's curious about that, go and read them. Seriously, Nike's not joking there, and neither am I. Heart of Thorns actually got railed for the fact that the game fought back, right? Games fighting back these days is actually seen to be a quite bad thing, funny enough, especially, well, in journalism anyway. But yeah.
I do think it's kind of worked though. I think a lot of people once they hit Heart of Thorns, they went like, oh shit, hold on, what's my gear? What's my build? I do think it's had that effect.
It's definitely a filter, you know?
Yeah.
Either you get to that point and you adapt and overcome, or you just go away. And to get back to my toxic point is, I think there are points like that in the game, and I don't care if the people just go away. I would prefer that they adapted and overcome. But if you get to level 80 and you're ready to hop into endgame and you're not curious about builds and you don't care about gear and you're just completely not curious, well, I mean, if you go, I can't figure out this game, I quit, I'm gonna go back to Cookie Clicker. All right, well, go back to Cookie Clicker, get the fuck out. No one was looking for you.
What if they're
I mean-
curious but they don't know what to look for? That's kind of my whole point
wow,
here,
come
is
on.
that they're like, wait, what's going on? Why, what are people asking for in LFG? Like suddenly they hit a wall, right? It's not like there's a ramp like, oh yeah, well, I understand where to go, I'm just gonna climb up this way. It's like, no, they like they have to slam.
What are all
their
these
brakes or
items
they
that have been
hit this
dropping
wall.
for me when I kill minions? Oh, I'm not going to equip any of them. I'm just not going to. Oh, what are all these skills on my bar? Not. I don't need to press
Well,
those. Who knows
look,
what they do?
Okay,
That
so
doesn't
let
happen.
me kind of cut in here. The way a lot of players engage with the game, and you'll definitely agree with this, and I think everyone here is going to agree with this, the way a lot of players engage with the game, and with games in general, there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, is extremely passively. So they're just going to go along until they encounter a problem. And they're not really, they're just going to kind of have fun and blast, right? And just press buttons and get the fat loot and do this and do that until something happens that indicates that something's going wrong, right? That is the way that players tend to engage with games. So yeah, you might go, oh, well, you're not looking at your items. I mean, but the thing is, this is what Sneb's saying. The game is not giving you any feedback whatsoever, really. Everything is trivial. Everything is so easy that the game is never saying, hey, you might want to actually think about this. Like, oh, hey, here's a roadblock for you to actually climb over, right? It just doesn't happen, ever. That's what's going on here. And because, yeah, like most players don't engage very actively, it's a very passive engagement. If they don't encounter a problem, if there's no kind of like red light bleeping at them, then yeah, they're not going to do anything. Because that's just not the way people play the game.
I mean, those red lights, those roadblocks do exist though, right? Like once people actually try to do a certain strike or try to get into raids or try to go up to like tier 3 fractals. I think maybe in a way the issue is just that it's like a pretty hard roadblock. Like it doesn't get you up on like a nice slope and then you're ready for the roadblock. It's kind of like, oh, you're doing perfectly, everything is fine, you're an epic gamer, and then bam, suddenly like you hit reality once you get to harder
Yeah.
content. The thing is though, I'm not sure if you can fix that. Because I feel like if you just have like some soft roadblocks kinda, no, it's not a problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
so
feel like, yeah.
I'll
do
tell you
you
what
think
I
you
would
understand?
do. Those soft roadblocks that you're talking about here, and this is just a suggestion. Obviously, I don't have the data. I don't know. I obviously don't know best. I'm not a game designer. But if I were to introduce something to help players understand why gear is important or why boons are important, I would incorporate little mini games or something that are part of the story or that you're led to in some way, where you go in and it's an instance and it's just you, and an NPC is like, here, put on this armor. We need you to cast protection. I don't know. We need you to put protection on this NPC for 5 seconds, and it gives you an item that allows you to put protection on. But unless you equip concentration gear, you can't get to 5 seconds. So it's sort of forcing you to engage with the equipment panel to an extent, but it's giving you all the things you need, so you wouldn't have to go and buy anything. Similarly, you could have roadblocks like that throughout the experience as a player gets further into the game with each different kind of mechanic, or with your utility skills with CC, for example, like, hey, you need to knock this thing all the way back, and it could give you like a weapon that has a knockback, right? I don't know. I just feel like they don't have anything like that necessarily. They have it in End of Dragons, and they have the little dodging mini games and a few things like that throughout the starter zones. But beyond that, it's pretty difficult for players to ascertain why the equipment panel is important, what the stats do. I mean, I created a bunch of fresh accounts, and it doesn't ever really direct you there. You don't learn what the stats do. You don't engage with them. And so players might just put on random stuff that they get throughout the leveling process. But once you're level 80, if you didn't boost, you're kind of, your gear is pretty bad. It's all a mishmash of random stats. So
Yeah.
When I first started playing, I just cared about getting exotic gear, and I didn't even look at the
Yes.
stats.
Magic
Just
find.
casuals.
Let's go. What do you think, Nike? Flame us.
I
Are
mean,
you going to activate?
I had full exotic berserker day 2 of the head start.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what's the highest damage stat set? And I looked at all the stat sets and I saw berserker, and I'm like, that's what I'm crafting. And so I went and started buying T6 bloods, and I crafted the gear. I had a pearl exotic berserker's greatsword, and I was very proud of it, because like everyone else was using like green, like random shit. And I went into World v World, and I was one-shotting people, and it was the best feeling in the game to be so overgeared for PvP content for a few days. Oh man, that was wonderful. You could just like bulls charge and like eviscerate people, and they would just they would take like 20k damage. It was the best. And then they caught up on gear, and World v World got way less fun.
I do actually kind of have a hot take on this, though. Part of I haven't entirely thought this through, so I might even change opinion on this. But part of me thinks that it's completely fine for people to play with bad gear. Like, I think if you don't enjoy, like, even caring a little bit about that, but as long as you're just having fun running around in open world, I think that's fine. And I think if you actually are someone that wants to engage more, then you engage with it. I don't necessarily think it's a huge, massive issue. I just think the issue maybe arises when people don't want to engage with the system, but they do want all the content to be catered to them. Like
Yes.
when people are like, I want to use my exotic gear with stats that make no sense. This was me back in 2012. And I want to be able to kill every raid. I think that's kind of where the issue happens. But I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with running bad gear and then running an open world. And if you're having fun, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually you figure it out, or you don't.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
I figured
no,
it out eventually.
I want to be very clear that I 100% agree with that. 1,000,000%. Games are about having fun, and if you're not having fun, then why are you playing the game, right? The game shouldn't be trying to force you to do any certain thing.
Mhm.
The issue is that it doesn't give you the option, right? The game doesn't help you choose. And so a lot of times you don't make a choice when maybe you would. And so that's my concern, is I want to give players the knowledge so that they can make an informed decision. If they care about that, then great. Now they've been given the choice. But if they don't care about that, they can be like, whatever, I still get to play and enjoy this part of the game that I like. The issue lies that you have people that get to the instance content and they don't understand that these things that they may have been sort of nudged into very briefly are way more impactful than they thought.
Yeah.
So it's very tricky because I'm a huge proponent of people playing however they want to play to maximize fun. But when you get to a team environment, if somebody's not pulling their weight and you're failing and failing and failing because somebody's in all blue gear, well, that kind of sucks. Now that player might have a bad experience because they're asked to leave or they're kicked or whatever. And that's the part that I hate that happens. I wish that people would be introduced to the system so that we can have fewer interactions like that.
I think one of the things that we've suggested many times is to make the story dungeons part of the story that you are forced to go through as you level, if you want to play the main storyline. If you get to level 25 or whatever it is, when AC dungeon story mode opens up, that should be your next story step. And I know it's tough for the people out there that have issues with grouping with people and being in a group of people, but that is where you get the Band-Aid ripped off. You go do AC story, and it will reveal a lot of things about the game to you. And it'll either force you to improve, force you to get used to grouping with people. And it's not a failable thing. Like, you're never, like, it might take you 4 hours, but you'll eventually do it, you know? Like, you're not going to just like you don't hard wipe and then have to restart the instance, you know? You can grind away at it, but it will be the learning experience that I think people need. And because you get the regular story steps every 10 levels on the even number, so you should get the story dungeons every 10 levels on the 5s or whatever.
I think it's go ahead.
No, that's it. That would be a better solution.
I was going to say it's really important. I think when we're talking about stuff like this, I think we should be kind of aiming the conversation in a way of things that actually could happen. And I could 100% see that actually happening. I think, though, there'd have to be one slight caveat there, and it would be that you'd have to make at least the story mode scalable, I think. So in other words, if you go in with one person, it actually like reduces the health of the boss by 80% or something. So it scales down to one person. And you have 3 people, it scales up to 3 people. If you have 5 people, it scales up to 5 people. Because I do think that the Guild Wars 2 story is a solo experience. You know, we can say, oh, it's an MMO, Omega Lol, but that's the reality. The Guild Wars 2 story, in fact, the Guild Wars 2 experience is mostly solo. Let me extend that. Most MMOs are almost entirely solo or entirely played solo. That is a fact. It's unusual, but it's how it is. So you'd have to make that scalable, a bit like a drag and response mission. But yeah, if you could throw that into the story, I think that would be really, really good, for sure. And then that would also kind of encourage people to group up, right? Like if there's an option to group up, I think, yeah, players are definitely going to go for it.
Especially if it's stressed. Highly recommended 5 people. Like, yeah, that'd be tough. Yeah. And if you do it solo, even if it scales, it could still be not the type of thing you want to do. Like you might never be able to break a break bar solo unless you have like a build geared towards it.
Yeah. And I think that they should also just give you, this would be really weird actually. I don't know how they would do this in a way that it would make sense for all the dungeons, but they really need to give the core game the boost treatment, right? Like when you get to level 80, full celestial gear, that's the way it should be. I think that, in fact, if they make any change, that would be the optimal change. When you get to level 80, you have full, I don't know, like half rare, half exotic celestial gear. Congratulations. You've now officially solved a huge amount of the problems in the game because players have full celly and they can just walk over everything, no problem, easy.
No, let's go one step further with that, though. Let's say you ding 80, it goes da-da, you know, congratulations on hitting level 80. You know, we've given you this set of gear, and then it opens up and takes you to your equipment panel, and there's like a pop-up that says, hey, like equip it here. And it just introduces you to that very gently so that you have the choice. You can engage with it or not. But it's really saying, hey, like this is something that would help you. Because currently it's just like, here's a helmet, you know? Here's a level 74 leather helmet that you can't equip. And yeah, I don't know. A lot of people just don't engage with it because it doesn't seem to matter very much to them. So just kind of nudge them, help them see that it's a thing, and maybe they'll want to, when they get to something that's a little bit more challenging or group oriented, they know what people are talking about.
And you know, there's another thing here that I actually want to quickly address here. There's a lot of commentary in the chat saying, you know, this is ridiculous, this is insane babysitting, this is insane hand-holding. And you can think that you know, that's an opinion. But what we're saying here is a response to observations. We aren't just prescribing this. We're not looking at this. We're not trying to build this because this is the way we think things are. This is us observing the way things are and reacting to them, right? That's what's going on here. Like, I think a lot of people think that we're just making this up or we're guessing. No, this is what happens. If you look at players who get into games, yes, most people don't engage with the gear. Yes, most people don't know how boons work. Yes, most people don't know how to control their character very well, right? And do you know what's weird? This is the thing that kind of bamboozles me a little bit. A lot of the people who are like, oh, you know, stop babying these people are the exact same people who might actually have a go at new players for not being very good and kind of like, oh, look how trash these keyboard turners are in open world. Yeah, this is what we're trying to address here. That's the point, right? Is we're trying to figure out how we could go about solving this. Because if you don't have a very, you know, loads of neon flashing signs, then you have to accept that people are going to fall through that net. And that is going to happen because that's happening right now. We're describing reality. This is not some kind of fantasy fairyland. No, we are looking at the current way that the game plays out. And the weird thing is that I find it incredibly interesting that people argue over this when I think if I actually ask people in the chat, the same people saying stuff like, oh, you know, this is ridiculous babysitting. If I ask those same players, do you think there's a huge amount of people who just fall through the net and get completely memed and utterly lost? They'd almost certainly say yes. So what are we arguing about is my point here. Like, why are we disagreeing, right? We actually agree here, but we're like, oh, we don't want to actually do anything about it. They have to just get good magically. No, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, guys.
I think the trick is that you can nudge players in the right direction very easily. Like you quickly mentioned like keyboard turning just now. Like that, if you're like an MMO veteran, you might not even think about this, but in the past there was a huge amount of players that would not use their right mouse button to move around, right? They would be like, oh, I have to go the other way, turn slowly with my keyboards, walk that way. If you're an MMO veteran, you might not even realize that happens, but that happens a surprising amount. And ArenaNet fixed that. They changed the default keybinds to no longer turn you, but just make it strafe instead. And now suddenly it's like, oh shit, how do I get there? Oh, I guess the one option I have with my right mouse button. So they changed 2 keybinds, default keybinds. And they sort of like removed an entire pitfall, which actually a surprising amount of players was falling into. So it's like, I think as an MMO veteran, it's very easy to forget that these things happen. And you're like, oh, well, we just gotta, you know, give these players, we gotta trust them a bit that they can figure it out. And I do think we have to trust players in a way for a bit. But, you know, the more the game kind of just nudges you in the right direction, the better. Because not everyone has played MMOs for the past 20 years, right? There are still people getting into it for the first time. My twin sister was here last week, and I made her try to kill Sabafa. It didn't go very well. She didn't know how to turn the camera. And she's played tons of video games on like her Switch and stuff. But again, just like tiny changes can help a lot, I think. And it's just like nice for everyone and makes the game more accessible.
And we're not
I
trying
really
to
like what you said there.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh
yeah, I was just
Okay.
going to quickly say it's not about forcing players to get good. It's giving them the options and the road to be able to do so. Making that road as obvious and as clear as possible. Right now, I think players struggle to find the road to improvement if they're looking for it. I'm not saying I'm going to force everyone down the road of improvement. I'm saying that I want the road of improvement to be as visible as possible, so that if players go, oh, I'd like to get better at the game because I'm having difficulty with, I'd love to get into raids, I'd love to get into strike missions, or I'd love to get into fractals or PvP or world versus world, I want that option to be incredibly obvious so that players can walk down it. It's not about forcing people to get good. That's not the point.
It's about empathy. I think it's very. I actually find this to be a sort of an alarming trend, because whenever we talk about these things, chat's always like, "What do you mean? Like, these people are just idiots then?" And I just find that just to be so flippant and dismissive. People, when they're starting something new and there's a whole lot of content and there's a lot of different systems, it's naturally going to be a little bit of a learning curve. And as veteran players, of course, it seems very easy to us, right? But we should try to empathize a bit and go, okay, well, back when I was trying to learn, it did take me a while, or maybe there were less systems at the time, or I've just learned over a long period of time, or I'm exposed to this more because I have networks of community and friendships and guilds and whatever that play the game, so I'm in the know a lot. For players that don't have that and are interested in improving, they need to be able to, they need some sort of guidance, right? They need somewhere to go. And currently, if they go and they're like, I want to jump into a strike mission, and they look and there's all this lingo, all these words that the community are using, they're saying HB, CM, FC, W4, like there's all of these different words and symbols and acronyms that would be a lot to digest, and they're just like, okay, well, I'm just going to click on one. They click on one and they get kicked from the group because they don't understand.
Good.
And that is quite a barrier for people.
Yeah.
So, but not only is there all this terminology, but there's also this, hey, I leveled to 80, maybe leveled multiple characters to 80, but I don't understand how the gear system works and how stats work. I don't understand crit capping and precision. I have no idea. And they're not going to understand if they've never been given a chance to understand.
Once they go, I don't understand how precision works, now they're at a fork in the road. The path to the left says, I don't know how precision works. Oh, well, that's an unsolvable problem. The path to the right is...
They never even know what precision is.
Sure.
That's the problem. They never even know what precision is.
Okay.
Because they've never been introduced to it.
Pick
So
some
how do they know
other
what to
example.
look up?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the specific example is, but you eventually get to a point in the road where it's like, here's a bit of information I don't understand. Path to the left is throw my hands up and walk away. Path to the right is do the basic amount of investigation. I think that like people that pick the left path, like they're just going to run into another fork 10 minutes later, and they'll eventually just stop playing. And you can put guardrails to keep them from going to the left, but eventually they'll find one where they can climb over the guardrail and quit the game. Like that's like, you just have to be the type of person who wants to go to the right and go and figure out the answer. Like that's, at some point you have to have that desire to want that. But again,
to look up,
Guild Wars 2 lets you not be that person. You can be open world,
the onion
running
farm.
around. You can onion farm. You can run around or killing the monsters. Like, and you can go to like the Shadow Behemoth. It doesn't. None of what we're talking about matters for players like that, and that's fine. They can have that fun. But once you get to the point where you're looking at the LFG and you're like, I want to get into strikes, and then you see all this jargon that you don't know, that's your fork in the road. Do I want to figure out this jargon, or do I not want to figure out this jargon? And that's up to you.
And I think it's not about making it 100% effective, because of course you're not wrong. There are going to be the situations where someone just has no interest and will just not have curiosity, 100%. But I think the goal is to reduce the amount of people who fall off, right? Like, in the guardrail analogy, we want to reduce the number of people who fall off the edge and quit the game as much as possible. And I think that it's really worth noting that any barrier, no matter how insignificant, is going to crush participation. And I think a really good example actually is dealing with group content in Discord communities. Joining a Discord is far too much effort for a huge amount of people. That's too much off the beaten path, is joining a Discord.
Yeah,
So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Any barrier is going to cause a huge amount of people to fall off the railing.
The barriers compound a lot is what I'm trying to get at, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different barriers that when people don't understand the very foundational things and we just go, we'll just look it up, right? Then that's kind of ridiculous, right? Like the game needs to teach people the foundational stuff so that when they do hit the wall, it's not like they have to start from ground zero. They have some knowledge about what to look up or what to ask. But right now you just run into a wall and you're like, well, shoot, I don't know where to even start. That's the problem for me, is it's the sheer breadth and depth of what people have to figure out when they get to that point that hasn't really been breadcrumbed along at all for them. If I can go through the whole game with no armor and no weapons, and I imagine new players will just kind of equip whatever they get, by the time they get to a point where they're going to team up with people and play instance content, they haven't engaged with those systems whatsoever. So now they're not only expected to learn those systems, but how subgroups work, how all the boons work, and so all of this compounds to the point where you can't just laugh at people and say, oh yeah, well, if you're too stupid to Google, then goodbye. Well, that's totally unfair, because you're trying to get them to learn too many things all at once. They need to be given the opportunity to learn some of these things over time.
I 100% agree with this. I don't think, again, there will be some people who are not interested, and that's completely fine, and there's lots of content for them to do. But I think right now, the issue is people, like you say, they just cruise through the early game, and it's like, oh, I don't really have to worry about any of these things. And then there's a moment where they hit this brick wall. And some people will see that brick wall and they'll be like, hell yeah, it's a brick wall. And they'll go Google it and look up some tutorials and they'll climb the brick wall, right? And then they'll be fine. But I think what we can actually all agree on is that it would be nicer if that brick wall is like a little bit smaller and you already know some of those things. You already know how gear works. You already know like how the different boons interact with each other. And that would be a fantastic improvement to the game.
It might be a matter of, instead of hitting one big brick wall at level 80, if that at level 25, you had to jump over this little tiny fence. Exactly. And there will, but unfortunately, and you guys will have to accept this, there will be people who see that little tiny fence as an insurmountable brick wall. Yeah. And they just got to get left behind. Or maybe they put the game down for a year and they come back to it a year later when they see an ad, and then they have a different mindset. But any little wall, even if it's something that they could walk over without even noticing it, could potentially be a problem. So you eventually hit the point where ArenaNet just has to make a decision on what kind of filter they want. Do they want any filter or a little tiny filter, or when do they want the filter to happen? There has to be. It's a decision that they have to make, and it seems like their filter is expansion sort of content.
Yeah, there has to be balance, right? You can't do everything for the player and play the game for them. At some point, they do need to have a spark of curiosity and look things up and engage with people and communicate to get through the harder end game stuff. But if you lower the barrier slightly so that players are able to articulate what they need and what's going wrong, or give them feedback that explains why they're not achieving the things they want to achieve, then suddenly that curiosity is sparked and they can go, oh, well, I'm failing at this, or I'm struggling with this, and I know what to ask and what to look up and where to go, rather than having them drink from a fire hose and be given everything at once.
Yeah. And I also say that we're not just saying, okay, well, we have to literally handhold players. We have to make sure that there's an instruction everywhere. That's the only thing we're going to do. Obviously, you want to inspire players to be curious as well. It's very much that, you've got to teach someone to fish, not just keep handing them fish over and over again. Yeah, you want to inspire curiosity and inspire players to want to go, oh, I wonder what this does. Oh, I wonder what happens if I use this ability this time. What about this weapon? What about this trait line? Right? Yeah, for sure. You want to do both. It's not going to be it's very rare in anything that you would go, okay, we have this one thing that we're going to do and it's going to solve the problem completely, right? I mean, solving the problem completely isn't even possible, as Nike has already said. The goal is to try and alleviate the problem as much as possible with a few different approaches and different strategies to help players navigate the game, because we know it's hard. We know that players really have difficulty learning the game and improving at the game. Players, when they go into PvP, they get absolutely splattered immediately. When players try to, look, I hate to bring it up, get your bingo cards out, but gamers, Dragon's End, right? This was one of the biggest dramas in the history of the game. And why did that happen? Well, I'm just going to be blunt. It's because the vast majority of the player base did not have a solid understanding of how group content works. That's just it, right? I'm not flaming. I'm just saying that people didn't know. People did not have people felt very frustrated, like it was impossible and completely random, because they did not understand how to actually tackle a problem like that, right? And this wasn't just a few people. This was everyone, right? What was that? Was it a 10% win rate on launch? Less than that? Even?
Hell yeah.
Less than 10%. So if we kind of guesstimate there, 90% of the player base did not have a solid understanding of gear and boons.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, some people in chat are being like, well, they should just Google this and stuff. But the reality is that a lot of people don't, right? And if we can help a tiny bit, help make it a little bit smoother, that would be a good thing. And there would be no downside.
Well,
I think
think
that's
about
the
this,
trick.
right? Okay, you've just failed Dragon's End for the 9th time.
Run
The
to
20th
Reddit,
time.
alert
The 20th time.
What-
The 20th time.
What do you Google? What do you look up?
Yeah.
Where
Exactly.
to
Where do you start?
email my complaint
Yeah.
to ArenaNet about this content that is broken, because I can't do it.
No, but really, what do you look up? Like, what do you?
Yeah.
Where are you supposed to start?
That's the tricky part. Right now, it's like
where do
all
you
at
begin?
once.
If you've been failing this over and over and over again, where do
Yeah.
you begin to learn how to get good at doing Dragon's End? You can watch. Let's say you watch a video guide and it sort of explains. It's like, okay, well, there are subgroups, and you got to make sure you have boons, and you need to try to have a build that synergizes, and you want to do these things. Well, suddenly you're like, whoa, wait. Let me get my pen and paper. Click. Okay, boons. I have never really engaged with that before. Okay, now I have to learn gear and a build. Like I haven't really engaged with that very much. I thought I had a good build. What do you mean? And what are they talking about with subgroups? What does that even mean? Suddenly you're getting this like whole PhD in Guild Wars 2. Like there's like a million things that you have to look up and learn. And I know that I'm really harping on this, but when you're trying to learn any concept, if you're just jumping around all over the place, trying to learn a million things at once, you're not going to be learning effectively. And so when we sit back and we go, yeah, I'll just like Google it, you're asking people to learn a whole bunch of things all at once, and they're not going to learn any of it well because they're going to get fragmented or sometimes opposing opinions on things. The information's all going to be sparse and spread out in different areas. And so you're asking people to do a lot of legwork to learn all of these things that ideally they would have learned slowly along their journey.
Well,
So-
yeah. The problem is waiting till Dragon's End
To learn.
decide that you're
Yeah, yeah.
ready to learn the
But
game.
this is
Wait,
why-
is the
yeah.
problem that they
Yeah.
waited till Dragon's End, or is the problem
Well,
that
yeah.
they were never
Yeah, it
prompted
is.
before
It
that?
is the
Well,
I should've-
it's that the game didn't ambiently increase in difficulty that much. Right, and I just want to quickly introduce a concept to people here, and I don't like using terms like this because I think it can obfuscate, but I think it's really useful here. There's a concept, gamers, called survivorship bias, which essentially means, well, look, I made it, so everyone else can, right? That's a way of putting it, right? And I think a lot of that is going on here, right? We're all going, well, I looked it up on the internet, and it worked out just fine for me, and I was able to learn this way. So that means everyone can do it, right? Well, no, right? That isn't how it works, actually. Like, it just means that you made it, but it doesn't actually have any kind of bearing on other people. Like, can you theoretically do it? Yes, but is everyone actually going to do it? No, right? And like a pretty good way to illustrate this is, okay, let's do a real life example. Should we do a real life example? Nah, real life example sucks. Let's imagine. Let's talk about clearing hard content in Guild Wars 2, seeing as we're on the topic. Is it theoretically possible that every single player in Guild Wars 2 could clear Harvest Temple Challenge mode? The answer to that question is yes. Is that theoretically possible? Yes. Because
you just get in a group with 9 good people and you could just die at the first phase and still win. Everyone has access to the same buttons. Everyone has the same gear. Everyone has the same fight, right? So, in theory, can every player in the game press the right sequence of buttons to clear that content? Yes. However, are there a lot of things in the way to do that? Are there a lot of, can you get a stable group together for 10 people? This is actually a really big, I've been actually helping out with a few static groups, right? And the really big thing that is super difficult is having 10 people who can play consistently, right? That's one hurdle. Okay, how about 10 people who are willing to practice their DPS rotations? How about 10 people who are willing to put in the hours to actually grind the mechanics? How about 10 people who will not actually get mad at each other long enough to actually clear it, right? How about people who are willing to buy infusions, to buy writs, right? To burn all that gold or all that kind of stuff. And by the time you climb up there, you've kind of filtered out a huge amount of people. And yeah, that's kind of the point, but I don't think our goal with Guild Wars 2 should be that even learning the basic concepts of the game is some kind of Mad Max dystopia, right? Where only like the strong survive, right? And actually figure out how boons work. I just don't think that's the goal, right? If you want to say that PvP and hardcore raiding, it should be a brutal crawl to the top. Yeah, okay, sure, whatever, that's fine, right? That's kind of part of it, is that there is going to be a struggle. There is going to be some challenge. But I don't think it should be some kind of Hunger Games shit to even figure out how the combat system works. Am I right? I mean, I don't know. Well, one thing I would say is, like, MMOs, even the simplest MMO, is, like, insanely complicated as far as the game goes. Like, you have, on one end of the spectrum, you have, like, tic-tac-toe, which is about as easy as a game could possibly be. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have, like, the most complicated, you have like EVE Online or whatever, So like, if you're like, I've never played an RPG before, I'm one of these players, I've never played an MMO, I've never played an RPG, and you jump in and your first game is an MMO, like, well, you are jumping into the deep end. You're not like dipping your toe in with Breath of the Wild or whatever and like learning about like, RPG basics through Zelda. You're going into the deep end. You're jumping into the lion's den. So, I mean, there is going to be a learning curve that's pretty steep for someone like that. And I don't know. It's kind of, how much resources do you want to dedicate to someone who's jumped into the deep end like that?
Well,
I think there's one.
Oh, God.
I think there's one crucial point that we're missing here. Because I think it's not necessarily that people like again, reading some of the messages in chat, I don't think it's that people are like lazy or that people are like too stupid to learn it. Like, you can find lots of fantastic guides online, but it's not just about being able to do it. It's also about like having fun, right? People have jobs, right? People, they go to their job, maybe they have a family, they've got like a couple hours to play. What do you want to do in those couple hours? Do you just want to play the game, or do you want to go Google a guide on the wiki about how boons work, right? I think a lot of people fall off because of that, because they're just like, I don't care that much right now about learning all these details. It's not that they can't learn the details. It's not like, whoa, they're too lazy to Google. That's not how it is at all. I think it's just people, they just want to have fun. They don't want to like study as if it's some kind of PhD that they're learning.
Exactly.
So I think the point isn't that like, oh wow, people are so stupid to learn. I think it would be just be nice if it's fun in the game, smooth learning curve. Just kind of learn it while having fun in the game. And I feel like this is entirely being missed.
Well, I
Just
think-
like
if you're having fun, you're gonna be prompted.
Yeah.
You're gonna spark some curiosity. You'll be like, "Holy crap, I'm having a good time. How do
Exactly.
I make this even better?" And then suddenly you're gonna start asking people. You're gonna start looking things up, and then it doesn't feel like a chore. But if you hit the wall and you have to like look up every single little thing
Yeah.
possible, that's not fun. I don't want to look up things for 10 hours to figure out how I can start playing the game. That's no fun.
But
Exactly.
that's not what's happening. People are getting to Dragon's End before they have to look that up. But if you're all the way to Dragon's End, you've played a lot of the game. You've played a lot of the game, and the great thing about an MMO is like, yes, the end game is like Settlers of Catan or some incredibly complicated thing, but there is Candyland in the game. You can go, whoa, the Settlers of Catan, that's a little complicated for my first ever board game. I'm going to go back to Candyland and play Candyland for a little while. And maybe like I'll look and see if like Monopoly is like later on. Like you don't have to like, I don't know. If your first ever board game is that you've ever played is Settlers of Catan, like that's going to be an overwhelming experience for sure.
I think a good place to wrap this up, because we've been talking about this for a while. I think we could maybe talk about something else. This one always gets intense, right? This is a pretty intense topic. Is that I think I'd like some intermediary board games in between those two. Like one where people can go after Candyland before going to Dragon's End, right? And I think that, look, for all the people who think, oh, you know, these absolute noobs, these total scrubs, hey, good news. One of the really big things that I'd actually try and tackle this with is actually by increasing the difficulty of the game. So that should make people happy, right? Like if you are that kind of elitist type that's like, oh yeah, fuck the noobs, man. Yeah, I'd make the game harder, because difficulty is a really useful tool for expressing game mechanics to players. Because if a mechanic doesn't matter, in other words, because there's no fail state or there's no like reason to engage with it to conquer something about the game, then players on average aren't going to engage with that mechanic. So yeah, like a big part of this is good news. I'm on your side. I'd make the game a little bit harder. You know how we think the core game is super easy and open world is like way too easy? Yeah, I actually really like what they did with End of Dragons. I also think it's worth noting, by the way, that I do think players got better at the game on average with End of Dragons. You know, a little bit anyway, because the End of Dragons meta events are actually a bit harder. You know, like all of them are actually, to be honest. You know, you've got the clap of the golem, you've got Renyak, who's a bit of a HP sponge, and then you've got Dragon's End as well. So yeah, I think that a little bit of incremental ambient difficulty increases are really, really good. You kind of had that in Heart of Thorns. It really fell off in Path of Fire, I think, and through a lot of the story. Yeah, like I think that the game should push you a little bit more, right? Like really nudging you a little bit more is very important, not just like pure tutorialization, because I think in general tutorialization it's a bit hit and miss. I think a lot of people just kind of skip them and then never engage with them ever again, but I think that's good too. But I think in general, just make it so the game pushes back a little bit more. I think you're going to spark a lot of curiosity. And players will have a better experience, because honestly, it's really not fun to smash into an impossible wall. Like, you know, you see quite a lot of these posts where people are like, this is impossible. What the hell, right? I can't win. What the hell's going on here, right? It's just not a very enjoyable experience. And a lot of people fall off this way, right? And just the final thought I'll have here, I'll give other people final thoughts as well on this topic, but I really would encourage you to have some empathy here, right? It might seem ridiculous to you that players kind of fall off the wagon this way, but it happens a lot. Like if you look at the number of players that actually make it through to hyper endgame stuff, like the group content, especially the high level group content, it is not a lot of people who make it there, right? So we can say, oh, well, all those people should have used Google. Well, you know what? Maybe if they used Google, they would have made it. But that doesn't really help, does it? We're not really helping the conversation by saying, oh, well, they should have used Google. There is something to be talked about here, and I would really encourage you to think just how many people don't make it, because it's a very high number. But yeah, final thoughts, gamers?
Very interesting discussion.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess my final thought is, if you think that players should have to use Google to figure out the most foundational aspects of the game, like gear, if you think that they should have to use Google, it's different than saying, oh, they should be curious. But if you think that they should have to use Google,
Do you think they have to?
that's a problem to me. Yeah, I do. I think that to
I
understand
don't
lots
think
of these
so.
things, that they're kind of forced to, because it's not very well integrated in the game as you're progressing through things like the story, the leveling experience. So when I get to level 80 and I have a big mismatch of gear and stats, well, you might not look it up until suddenly you are forced to, but then you're going down quite the rabbit hole. I think we ought to empathize that going through and learning every single little thing about the game through Google is actually a lot and can be unfun for a lot of players. And so if they were sort of breadcrumbed along throughout the game, it would be a better experience for everyone. So use some empathy there.
Yeah, that's kind of my final thoughts as well, I guess. Like, I don't see how you could be against a better teaching in the game, right? Because like, to me that just seems like a good thing for everyone. Like if even if you're an epic raider, I think we would all like the raid scene to be bigger. I think we'd all like to see less people fall off the wagon and see more people engage with the game and get better at it, and like maybe some people getting to like the really hard content and engaging with that. So I don't, just because a lot of us did it kind of the hard way, using Google and guides and stuff, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with like wanting future people to get there easier, right? It just seems like a good thing to me. Would be cool. I want this.
Nike, got anything toxic to say?
Yeah. I opened up my hero panel and I went over to where it says your attributes, and I hovered over power and it says increases attack. I don't know what attack is.
That is a weird one, not gonna lie.
But as a new player, I intuit that increasing my attack will mean I kill things better. And when I hover over like condition damage, yep, increases condition damage. I bet that makes my bleeds do more damage. I can intuit that. I feel like having if you want a min-max build, yes, you probably have to Google it. But there's certain things that you can sort of intuit from the hero panel if you like take kind of a look around, just a little
I've
look
heard
around.
people tell me that they thought that precision affected your condition damage.
That's fine. That's actually fine, because adding more precision to your build will never hurt your build. Like if you're like a new player, like that's not a mistake. It's not a bad mistake. That's a livable mistake.
And I mean,
the fact that they're thinking and the gears in their head are turning about that, and even if they come to the wrong answer, the fact that the gears in their head are turning is a good thing. That's a sign that they are somewhat invested and curious, which is good.
That those exist, right? Just little tooltips, like.
Yeah, and the thing is, and the example I gave, the power thing, is literally wrong, because there's no such thing as attack. It says increases your attack. There is no such thing as attack. But it's so dumbed down that it goes like it's like this like horseshoe this theory thing where it's like it's so dumb that it wraps back around to being useful. Like increases attack. Like attack doesn't mean anything really in the systems. But it does mean something in the Pepega head of the new player who's like, me attack. And it's like, oh, sweet, more attack. Let's do it. Like, it works. It's good.
Oh, you know what I like a lot, by the way? With EOD, they added like these little tooltips for trait lines that sort of roughly describes what the trait line is. Like, this is kind of for Condi. This is kind of for your illusions. I like that a lot. I very much appreciate that. That's one of these things that makes this better, I think. People can sort of in-game get a vague idea of what a trait line actually is about.
Do we have another topic?
Let's swap.
I think you wanted to talk a little bit about the extra life stuff, Sneb, and the drops returning to the game.
Oh yeah. Just briefly. I have like 10 minutes and I have to go. But I'll tell. I actually had the opportunity to play with the developers, and it was honestly one of the best experiences. It was super fun. They were all very gracious, and kudos to them for putting themselves out there very publicly, especially some who have never raided before or raided very seldom. I think it was very cool that they were willing to just jump in and give it a go. So the context was I was Indigo, who's I think is she lead narrative dev, or she
I think
works.
Bobby Stein is the lead.
Yeah, what is her title
She's
exactly?
like-
I
I
know she
think
does a
she's,
lot of writing.
I think
Yeah.
she's like specifically the lead on the next expansion.
Oh.
But Bobby is like the
Oh, maybe
lead
that's it.
for like the whole studio. and
Indigo's
then-
rising up the power rankings.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she is blown right past some people that I won't name, Roy, but she's definitely skyrocketing up the rankings.
Indigo is actually really, really good at rating. Really
True.
good at rating. And so I had a really good time just chatting with her about how we were going to make things work. And we managed to get through Wing 1 and almost all of Wing 4. We got to Deimos and then we succumbed to the oil. But otherwise, it was a really good time. We ended up racing Teapot. I honestly, it was super, super cool. Extra Life, they've raised... Shoot, how much is it now? Like over 125,000?
Yeah, it's very. I think it's something like that. I'm gonna go check right now. I've gone on Team ArenaNet. Here we go. See what the number is. The number is 118,405. Very close to the goal. The goal.
It's really close.
I think everyone. Wait, we really want to get that goal, right? Because with 7K more, everyone gets a hat, right, in the game. I think is that correct?
Yeah,
I believe that is correct.
On the line.
So you need to do !extra life in the chat right now and throw all your money at Extra Life. We're going to have to spend $7,000 to get everyone in the game a free hat. So I would get on that right now. And yeah, just real quick, Seb, who won the race?
You did win.
Yeah.
Did win.
Yeah.
With a team of ringers, though, so.
It was true. Yeah, but they were all half asleep. So that was the handicap. And... we nearly lost to Slippery. Seriously. Okay, we one-shot basically everything except Mercer, Overseer, CM. Because we did Wing 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 with CMs against Wing 1 and 4 for Team ArenaNet. But Slippery Slubbling was almost our undoing. We wiped like 5 times trying to get that stupid Slubbling. Okay, through that fight. It's because no one ever does it. We were out of practice. We weren't ready for Slippery Slubbling, and we were punished. We were punished by that. So
That's like the one raid achievement I don't have. I've never done slippery slubbling. It's too hard.
Yeah. I think the thing that I really learned from that is that I view that as I feel like that is missing from the Guild Wars 2 kind of content, the content scene. I think there needs to be way more stuff like that. Just random, fun, competitive events, right? Just activities, right? Like a lot of content in Guild Wars 2, definitely my own, right? Especially right now. It's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna do Dragon's End again, guys. Oh yeah, whoa, wow. Ooh. Okay. I think we need a lot more stuff like that. It's got to be, you know what? I'm throwing down. Another thing that happened actually a while ago that I'm just going to reference now is I GVG'd Lara's guild. It was alliances. We GVG'd randomly in the middle of Desert Borderlands. That's fire. That's what I'm talking about. Should have uploaded that to YouTube. Didn't because I'm trash and useless. But I could have done that. That's what I'm talking about. That's content, right? We've got to do more raid races. We've got to do Dragon's End race. EU versus NA. The showdown.
I'm not even sure if you're aware, but my guild beat you in a Dragon's End race like 2 days ago.
What?
Yeah. So Darren
all right.
pulled up both of our streams because we were both doing Dragon's End, and he was like, "I'm gonna race both of them." So there was this race without us being aware, but we won.
All right. Okay. That's impressive.
I just had to tell you that.
Darren's and losing Dragon's End races. Name like a more notable combo, right?
Yeah. Impressive,
Condor
all right.
desk, quadruple agent.
I'm already planning my revenge. I'm planning my revenge already. Like you will suffer for this, Lara. I will not forget this. I will not forget this insult. You'll be destroyed.
Gotta get
Alright.
faster Dragon's
Yeah,
Ends.
I am. Yeah. No, I feel exposed here. I definitely feel like I have been exposed on stream. I will have my revenge. It was good. The X Life stuff was definitely fun. I'm going to be involved next time as well, for sure. And I like the drops coming back as well. The drops were they were a lot less potent, right? It was just like a 2-hour drop with some, what is it? You get like a teleport to a friend. You get the balloon. What else do you get? You get a hairstyle kit. And then one other thing.
Get a die kit.
A die kit as well. So it's like pretty okay items, I guess. But still got a lot of people involved, right? Like I think the category was around 20,000 viewers on day one, which is pretty impressive. Probably would have gone a little bit higher, but unfortunately, ArenaNet stream crashed because they ran out of electricity. I think there was a storm going on or something like that. So that wasn't that good. But yeah, I'm really glad that they're using drops again. I'd love to see them do it for the next kind of major release at the start of next year. Definitely a very powerful tool, very effective marketing as well.
Maybe for the CM of the strike.
Yeah, ooh, that could be cool. Yeah, for like the race to have loads of people watching it, that would be really cool. Because that was
Unless
a big
it's
win.
tuned really easy. If it's
Yeah,
gonna be a
yeah,
one
yeah,
shot,
yeah.
don't do
Yeah.
it.
Well,
You'll get a mega mold.
Yeah, maybe
That
not
would
for
be
that one because
bad.
it's going to be a one-dayer, I think. In terms of CM, we waited all until now to talk about it. But yeah, it's probably going to be like a one-day CM, I'd say. Who knows? Maybe we'll be surprised, but we'll see. Yeah, reserving something like drops for a Harvest Temple CM would be huge because that was a big win for ArenaNet. Like Harvest Temple CM, I think probably went even better than they thought. It got a lot of other communities interested from WoW and Final Fantasy, so that did work out pretty well. Actually, it was pretty epic gaming. All right, I think that's a good time to wrap up. I can see everyone is drained from that intense debate. I mean, look at Sneb.
We've all been
He's a
streaming
husk.
forever.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm a shell of a human
Sneb
being.
is not
Farming
even.
I
the
streamed for
drops.
11 hours
Yeah, yeah.
yesterday, and at the end, I was like, what time is it? What day is it?
I, for one, can't wait to read the YouTube comments for this tea time.
Yeah.
Yep. Every comment's going to be like, I hate Nike. I think he's a piece of shit, but he has a good point about XYZ. Like they always they can't just agree with me. They have to like preface it by how much they hate me first. Then they can agree with me.
I can't wait for the there's always like the token comment that says Sneb hates new players.
Yeah.
And I'm like, right.
It's no way this time.
Yeah.
You were like advocating for the new players for like 2 hours in a row.
Oh, you don't know about the comment, do you?
Oh.
No.
Oh.
No,
I
don't
want to. You know what? We're gonna go into outroductions right now. Let's go because Sneb's got a dash, so we're gonna do outros right now.
True.
But I'm gonna introduce Sneb with a comment he had on his Twitch recently. So Sneb, prepare to chill yourself. Let us know what the hell's going on there. Thanks for watching, everyone. By the way, TeaTime is officially ending right now, but don't worry, I'll keep streaming. But let's talk about Sneb for a moment. I get to stop watching you now. I got all the drops! Exclamation point. You're a really bad person. Don't do any more streaming. Smiley face. Sneb, tell us how we can find your not doing any more streaming.
Twitch.tv/Snebzor. That's SNEBZOR. Go there for challenges and raiding gameplay. Teach players how to raid. Ask any questions about the game. It's a good time.
Yeah.
Also on Twitter, same name.
Yep. You can see the links there in the chat. If you want to see links, it will be below on YouTube, guys. It's underneath the stream right now and in the chat. If you want to just get that stuff going, !hosts in the chat. And of course, what an excellent guest. Next up, also with the shades, same as me, it's Nike.
Wicked.
If I wanna flame you and I want to call you toxic, how can I go about doing that?
Oh, so many ways. You can come to my Twitter. There's a lot of flaming happening there. YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where there's Guild Wars 2 videos to enjoy that will titillate and delight you. And then my Twitch stream is mostly Zwift these days. If you're into that, you can definitely come. If you like topless guys, that's the place to see them. Jump on in.
Okay. Finally. It is my nemesis. Dragon's End arch nemesis. Lara. Void Walker, Lara.
GG, no re.
Best of what?
Never again.
Oh no. Oh no. Kurt, let us know. What's going on these days?
Hey everyone, my name's Drancy. I stream Guilds 2. I make videos sometimes. I tried to do weekly videos for like 6 weeks, and now I failed. It took like 3 weeks this time. I make videos sometimes. My bangs are too long, but I'm finally getting a haircut on Wednesday. It's gonna be so nice. I'm more excited for Wednesday than for the patch, and I'm really excited for the patch, so I'm really excited for this haircut.
There we go.
Twitch.tv/Serenity, let's go.
Boom. There it is. And finally, it's me. I stream a lot. I make various YouTube videos. I try to make more. I fail. But you know what? You should still go and subscribe anyway. Follow the stream. Subscribe to the stream. If you haven't followed and subscribed and engaged with the content of everyone here, what are you doing with your life, right? I'm going to tell you how to use Google to find these creators, right? Like, yeah, how are you going to learn about the game if you don't watch all the content?